And welcome again. And we'll start off with the bracha Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kitshanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu L'asok B'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
So as we're noting that we're transitioning now to the next stage here. And it's like a segue. But regardless, we just said that the angels had started to look towards Sodom and that Abraham was accompanying them at least part of the way, which is a midato yafa. It's a nice quality to do when you have strangers or visitors. Here goes. Vayomer Hashem. And God goes on to say, right, we had already mentioned that God says to his tribunal, should I in fact hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? And we had this wonderful Rashi which showed the rationale for why God felt the need ethically to share with Abraham, because he'd promised Abraham this area, this land, and these cities were part of that land. So God goes on to say, just make sure you're muted if you will, please. Vayomer Hashem, so God says, Za'akat Sdom v'Amorah ki Rabba, that the cry from Sodom and Gomorrah is great. V'chatatam, and as for their sin, ki kavda ma'od, it's very, very heavy. Their sin is very heavy. So, excuse me, I'm still hearing, okay, thanks. Give me a moment, please. I'm gonna have 1 moment. Okay. Okay. So let's take a look at. Let's see if there's a Rashi on that. And here we are. Vayomer Hashem. So Hashem said, El Avraham. So he says this to Abraham. She'asa kasher amar, because he was doing what he said he had proposed, shelo yichaseh mimenu, that he would not cover up from him, he wouldn't hide from him. Ki rabba, so it is very great. Kol rabba shebamikra, he says in every other case where you come across this word rabba, which means great, right? Hatam lamata, meaning the accent falls on the last syllable. It's ki rabah, right? Babait, underneath the bait. Lefi shehen meturgamin dola, because we would translate it as simply great. Or gadla v'holechet, or that it is great and growing, getting more and more, continuing to grow. Aval zeh tamor lamala, but we notice that the accent here falls on the first syllable, baresh, on the resh, ki rabba. Why? He says there's a difference. Lefi shemeturgam, because this we have to translate as gadla kfar. It has become great. It is great in the past in terms of completed action. Very often when you're studying Hebrew grammar, they talk about the past tense as perfect action, meaning action completed, and future tense or even present tense as imperfect, generally about the future as imperfect, meaning incomplete action. So I imagine there's a subtle difference between past and future and perfect and imperfect as to the choice of that particular way to describe it. Okay, so it means gadla kvar kamo shepirashti, that it has become, right, so great as I've explained. Vayhi Hashem, so he gives some other examples. Vayhi Hashemesh ba'a, and it means the sun set, not the sun was setting. Hine shava yivemteich, and this is it from Ruth, where she's told, or I believe Naomi is told, your sister. No, maybe this makes more sense that. Naomi is saying this to Ruth, behold, your sister-in-law has returned. Going on. Eradana, let me go down, ve'er and see, haketsa kata haba'a elai asu. Is the situation like the cries, her cries, the city's, that's the way we understand this on a pshat level. Is it like her cries, because city is feminine, that comes, they have done as the cries indicate, right? The cries that have come to me. And then kala, it'll be finished. We're going to need to explain, Rashi's going to need to explain this. But please note that there's a psik here, that this ta'am means asu, they have done, and kala, it is going to come to an end. Ve'im lo, however, if not, a da'a, I will then be able to figure it out. I'll be able to know. Okay, I'll know what to do. So it's a situation of witnessing to see the extent of the infraction that's going on. So, erdana, let me go down and see. Limed ladayanim, he was teaching judges, shelo yifsaku dinei nefashot, that they cannot reach a judgment regarding capital cases, ella be'ra'aya, except with eyewitnesses. There have to be eyewitnesses. Hakol kamo shepirashti, just as Rashi is making a reference to an explanation that he gave Parshat Havlaga, in the section that had to do with the dispersion of the nations, which happened at the end of Noah. So,
Rabbi,
yeah.
this is, you may be right, but what this says
Go on.
in the Chabad translations, this
Yeah.
teaches judges that they should not decide capital punishment cases unless they see it. Then it says, for example, they must go to the site of the crime and investigate the matter.
Okay.
So it's not even talking, according to this translation, it's not
No,
talking about
I'm,
other eyewitnesses.
well, I'll probably yield to their opinion here, only because I'm not an expert, in terms of all the details regarding how capital cases are to be judged. This kind of stuff, I imagine, would be found in Masechet Sanhedrin.
I think that's why it says the judges go down. When it says go down, it's talking about, because the people are already down, the eyewitnesses would already be down. So I think it's, sounds like it's talking about the judges should go down and see for themselves.
Okay, so it doesn't actually say that in the Hebrew. The Hebrew here just says lo yifsaku dinei nefashot. Okay, a psak din, right? Using that word means
no, the descending part.
Oh, but that's God speaking. Okay,
that's right. But this is what Rashi's commenting on, the descending part. The judges aren't in the original text. Rashi's commenting on I will descend.
Right. No, I understand.
And so if and then it says this teaches that the judges should descend and see for themselves.
And look at the okay. Certainly, something. I'm still learning, but I do also know that when it comes to these kinds of cases, there's a famous situation that I'm thinking of, which is why I translated it the way I did, which is they discuss the fact that this person comes and sees a body of a person and a man standing with a dagger dripping blood over him, and the rabbi who's commenting on this saying, what can I do? In other words, you can't use that kind of suggestive situation to actually do a capital case.
But just that doesn't say anything about descending. It's somebody
No, but
who's
this,
there.
I understand. Yeah, no, you're right, Lauren. But the issue, of course, is to see, because the point that Rashi's making here, the only reason why I'm even arguing with you, okay, is because it says ra'aya here, and he doesn't say, he isn't clearer than that. So we'd have to go back and look at his explanation, back where it talks about where God sees what they're doing. It mentions how God sees how they're building the Tower of Babel, and see what it says there. But I mean, again, you're right. The idea that God is in heaven, so to speak, and God is coming down to actually see the situation. So I'm certainly not trying to argue with you as far as that's concerned. I'm only looking at the Rashi here too. And
Yeah, well, this is what the Rashi
and
is
Raya.
here, and it is commenting on the descent.
Okay.
So not just
Okay. You're right. You're right about that. Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you. Regardless, I really appreciate your sharing that. Okay, davar acher. Okay, so another interpretation is a more metaphoric understanding of the word erda. I will go down. Okay, erda na l'sof ma'asehem. In other words, I'm going to look very, very deeply into every aspect of what they've done. And that's the other going down, understanding the going down there. And then hakatsa kata, like her screams, like her cries, and shel medina, of the city in this case. Medina very often is translated as province. So we're talking about that area, because it wasn't just Sodom and Gomorrah. It's also Adma and Sfoim and Soar. There were actually 5 cities. Rashi's going to mention this later, that were involved here, and that were mentioned before, by the way, in a previous chapter. But anyway, so they use Sodom, or sometimes Sodom and Gomorrah, just as an abbreviated way of referencing all 5 cities. So, Haba'a Elai Asu, which has come to me, did they do? In other words, is it like the screams? What did they actually do? V'chein omdim b'merdam. Okay, and in other words, are they remaining in their rebellion? They're not changing. They're not doing anything about it. It continues. This really continues. Creating these screams that are coming up to me, and then he says, "Kala ani osebahem." If that's the case, if they remain in that rebellious state, I will finish them off. So kala, spelt like this, right, means to end. And so, for example, at the end of Bereshit, we have in the first chapter, Vayichulu Hashamayim, right? I think that's the beginning of chapter 2. Vayichulu Hashamayim v'chol tzva'am. So the heaven and the earth were, and all their array were completed, were finished. But here, of course, it means to finish them off. Ve'im lo ya'amdu b'merdam. But if they do not remain obdurate in their rebellion, eda ma'aseh, I will then know what I need to do, lihi para mehen b'yisurin, to basically to punish them through tribulations. Okay, in other words, to exact justice through tribulation. Velo achale otam, but I'm not going to destroy them. I'm not going to finish them off. And similar to this expression we find in another place in Exodus chapter 33. Okay, this is after the sin of the golden calf. Okay, where they're told, the Israelites are told, va'ata, and now, this is with an ayin, so, and now, hored edyech me'alayach, remove your ornaments from you. So apparently the Israelites were quite bedecked when they left Egypt, and now they were removing these signs of nobility and ornamentation and beauty and stuff, because they had just committed such a terrible sin. And the sentence goes on to say, and I will know what I need to do do to you. I'll need to know, I will figure out what is a fitting punishment for what you did. And for this reason, yesh hefsek nekudat psik, and for this reason, there is a distinction, right, of the tam psik. So this is called a a psik, and that's a stop, right? Let's see here. Let me find the place. Bein asu lechala, between the word asu and the word kala. Kedei lahafrid teva mechaverta, so as to separate one word from its neighbor. V'rabotenu darshu, and there's additionally, it says, and our sages interpreted hakatsa kata, this word, is it like her screams? Okay? Sa'akat riva, that it's referring to a cry of a young girl. Achat, a certain young girl, sheharguha mita mishuna, which the Sodomites killed in a unusual form of death. Al shenatna, why? Al shenatna mazon la'ani, because she gave food to a poor person, k'meforash b'chelek, as is explained in Perek Chelek, that's the last chapter of Sanhedrin. So, at least what this does, because, talking about how wicked people are, but not actually describing the specifics of the wickedness isn't helpful. There is actually a Torah Tamima about this. See, yep, there it is. This is where he describes the specifics, and he's quoting from Sanhedrin here, okay, and gives the details. So I think I'm going to spare you hearing the details of what this Mita Mishuna was, and just it was a slow death is basically what they gave to her. But look at what they were punishing her for. They were punishing her for doing an act of charity, of caring for the poor. And so I think this is, in a way, to describe just where their values had gone, where these people were in terms of their wickedness. Deep stuff to think about, right? Because basically here is someone taking care of a person who's in poverty, who's in a unfortunate situation, and she's punished, she's killed with a slow death because she did something like that. I mean, that's the degree of wickedness involved here. So, going back. So that's how they understand it. The Torah Tamima discusses why they chose to do that. It's not that it's clearly moving away from the pshat of the text, which Rashi gave us to begin with, right? The fact that the word ir or medina is feminine, and so that's why it's ketsa kata. But anyway, vayifnu misham ha'anashim. So now the men turned from there, vayelchu Sodoma, and they went on to Sodom. Va'avraham odenu umed lifnei Hashem, and while Abraham remained standing before God. Rashi. Vayifnu misham, they turned from there. Mimakom she'Avraham livam sham, from the place where, the point to which Abraham had accompanied them. So they went on from there. Va'avraham odenu omed lifnei Hashem, and Abraham remained standing before Hashem. V'halo lo halach la'amod fanav, but the truth is, he did not go to stand before him. Ela hakadosh baruch hu ba'etzlo, but the truth is that initially, right, God had come to see him, God had come to see Abraham. Va'amar lo, and said to him. This is sort of introducing, right? Abraham's there. God says to his court, should I hide this from Abraham? And he doesn't, and now comes and talks to Abraham, right? Va'amar lo zakat sdom va'amorah, and says to him now the rationale for why these, what's going to happen to these cities and the need to judge the situation. Ki rabba, that it is so great. V'haya lo lichtov. So Scripture actually should have written, V'Hashem odenu omed lifnei Avraham. It should have said, and the Lord remained standing before Abraham. Ela tikan Tikkun Sofrimhu, but this is it's a stylistic issue that the scribes use. In other words, a tikkun, right, is a correction, an improvement by the scribes. Okay, and what he's basically saying, and just to finish this off, Asher havchuhu zichronam levracham liftechen, that where they switched around, they of blessed memory switched it around to write it in this way. And the reason they do is basically because it's less respectful to say that God came and stood with Abraham, and that so they used a euphemism here to describe what happened, but just so that what they were saying wouldn't be seen as impertinent or disrespectful. And this is probably where we're going to stop. Fortunately we do have tomorrow to continue with what's going on here. So I'm going to take this and move it. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that, that's for sure. Let's try this. See if this will work. Okay. So we're right over here. So we'll try, with God's help, we'll pick up tomorrow there. I'm going to stop the share. Thank those who've joined us.